My name is Clara Allen, and I fly for the United States Air Force. That sentence usually surprises people, though not because of what I do, but because I never lead with it. At family gatherings, I'm not Captain Allen or the pilot. I'm just Clara, the quiet cousin who shows up late, eats a little too fast, and leaves before dessert. Most of them still think I work at a desk somewhere, probably filing reports or scheduling flights. I've learned not to correct them. It's easier that way. Every summer, my mom insists I come to the big family barbecue. She says, they just want to see you. Maybe she believes that. But when I show up, it's always the same scene. The uncles crowd the grill, the aunts gossip about their kids' schools, and the cousins compete over who's bought the bigger house. I stand somewhere between the cooler and the folding chairs, smiling at the right times and laughing when I should. People ask about my office, then move on before I can answer. It's not cruel, just careless, like I'm part of the background noise. It used to bother me more. When I first joined, I thought I'd make them proud. I imagined their faces lighting up when they heard what I actually did. That fantasy lasted until the first reunion after basic training. One uncle asked if I had learned how to make coffee for the generals yet. Everyone laughed. I did too, but something small inside me cracked. Since then, I've kept my answers short and my stories simpler. It's easier to let them think I'm ordinary than to explain something they don't care to understand. There's a strange kind of silence that grows from being misunderstood. It isn't empty. It hums quietly, like the engine of a plane before takeoff. I carry it with me every time I walk into that backyard, past the smell of charcoal and sunscreen, past the chatter about fantasy football and car payments. I know my life doesn't fit their version of what a woman should be. They fill in the blanks for me, painting a picture that feels safer to them. And maybe that's fine. I've stopped trying to fit into it. Still, there are moments when the distance hits harder. Someone will make a toast about hard work or courage, and I'll nod like I'm agreeing, even though I've seen both up close in ways they never will. I'm not bitter, just aware. There's a quiet kind of dignity in knowing who you are, even when no one else does. That's the version of me they don't see. Not the cousin who keeps to herself, but the woman who flies through storms and lands steady, no matter how rough the air gets. By the time I pulled into my uncle's driveway, the sun was already too high, the heat clinging to everything like syrup. I'd come straight from the base, after 5 nights of flying and one brutal inspection that nearly tanked our readiness score. I hadn't really slept, hadn't even changed into anything decent, but I promised my mom I'd be there, so I showed up. The backyard was already buzzing. Kids ran barefoot through sprinklers, their shrieks mixing with the low hum of a country song playing from a portable speaker. The smell of grilled meat hung thick in the air, blending with sunscreen and spilled soda on plastic tablecloths. The adults were gathered around the grill, red cups in hand, trading stories that grew louder with each round. My aunt waved me over, but before I could say anything, my cousin Jake shouted from across the yard, "Look who finally parachuted in." That earned a laugh from the group. Not mean, not exactly, just easy, familiar amusement at my expense. I smiled, just enough to pass. I'd heard worse. I stepped onto the patio, accepted a paper plate I didn't want, and pretended to check my phone so I wouldn't have to jump into small talk. Someone asked me how work was. I said busy, and that seemed to satisfy them. The laughter continued without me. I stood on the edge of it all, half in, half out, like a guest in someone else's movie. No one asked what kind of flying I did. No one cared why I looked like I hadn't slept in days. They saw me, but not really. Not in the way that counts. I'd learned how to disappear without leaving. You nod at the right time, make eye contact just enough, and people assume you're fine. It's a skill, one you pick up when you know the real version of yourself won't fit the scene. That afternoon, I was physically there, but every part of me that mattered was somewhere else entirely. I was mid-bite, working through a pile of ribs I didn't really want, when Travis leaned back in his chair and said it. She probably just pushes papers all day. His voice was casual, loud enough to get a laugh, but not so loud that it could be heard. The table responded exactly how he expected. Forks paused. Someone snorted. My uncle chuckled and added something about how the military wasn't what it used to be. They didn't mean to be cruel. That's what made it worse. It was the kind of laughter that didn't leave space for correction, the kind that closed a door you didn't even know you were standing in front of. I kept chewing. I didn't look up. There was a moment where I could have said something, drawn a line, corrected the record. But I didn't. Not because I didn't want to. I just knew it wouldn't matter. Their minds were already made up, shaped by what they thought they knew, and nothing I said would stick. Instead, I nodded like it was a joke I'd heard 1,000 times. I let it pass through me, let the sound of their laughter roll over my shoulders like smoke. It's a strange thing, realizing you're invisible in a space that shares your blood, that no matter what you do out there in the world, you're still just the quiet girl who doesn't drink and leaves early. Something in me shifted under that patio umbrella. Not a sharp pain, but a dull, steady pressure in my chest. Like a rib was out of place, or maybe just finally tired of holding itself together. I don't think they saw it. Most people don't notice the silence that follows a wound. They only recognize the noise. But I felt it. That slow, sinking feeling that tells you the version of yourself they believe is the only one they'll ever accept. I stayed at that table, ribs cold, heart quieter than it had been in a long time. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't push back. I just sat with it. Because deep down, I already knew they weren't ready to hear who I really was. It started with a crackle over the radio, the kind that makes the room go still. A SEAL team was pinned near Kandahar, caught in a canyon they couldn't climb out of, boxed in by small arms fire and RPGs. Air support was thin. We were the only birds close enough, and just barely. I looked at the map and knew right away it was going to be ugly. Tight terrain, no cover, hot ground. The kind of drop that requires more instinct than protocol. My co-pilot glanced at me once. I nodded. That was all we needed. We were airborne in under 10 minutes. The noise in the cockpit was deafening, but in my head, everything went quiet. Focus locks in like that when lives depend on it. I kept the bird low, hugging the canyon walls so tight I could see dirt kick up from our downwash. As we closed in, the LZ lit up like a bonfire. Tracers cut the air. Explosions thumped in my chest. We had no choice but to drop in fast and hard. I flared just above the ridge and slammed us down between scattered rock and gunfire. My crew jumped out before the skids even settled. I held the controls steady, eyes locked on the gauges, listening to chaos through my headset. 2 SEALs were down. The others dragged them in while bullets pinged off the fuselage. Someone shouted, "Go!" and I lifted off so fast my stomach stayed behind for half a second. A rocket clipped the tail. Warning lights flared, but we were still flying. I banked sharply, ducked under a ridge, and pushed every knot of speed I could squeeze from the engines. We cleared the canyon, and no one was dead. That was the mission. That was the job. Hours later, back on base, I was doing a post-flight check when one of the SEALs found me. He didn't say much, just looked me in the eye, still blood on his sleeve, and said, "You fly like a Valkyrie." Another guy behind him added, "Yeah, like a damn ghost with teeth." They laughed, but it wasn't a joke. That name stuck. Not because I asked for it, because I earned it. No medals, no speeches. Just one night, one flight, and a team that made it home because I didn't flinch. That's all the recognition I ever needed. The morning after that mission, I walked back onto base with grease on my boots and a shake still lingering in my hands. Nothing about me looked different. No one pinned a medal to my chest. But something had changed. The nickname caught on fast. First in the hangar, then in briefing rooms, then on chalkboards and call sheets. Valkyrie. Pilots I'd never spoken to nodded when I passed. One of the generals brought me up in a command meeting, saying our unit should study how Valkyrie handled Kandahar. The air shifted when he said it. Heads turned. I kept my eyes down and wrote my notes. That's how it goes. The work speaks louder than you do. It didn't take long for the name to drift past our base. Messages came in from other squadrons, air crews asking if I was the Valkyrie. I never confirmed it, didn't need to. The stories traveled on their own. I let them move without me, like smoke rising off something still hot. But when I went home, I left all of it at the gate. I never mentioned it at dinner. I didn't bring it up at the barbecue. My keys didn't have tags. My stories stayed locked behind my teeth, not because I was ashamed, because I knew how they'd handle it. They'd nod, maybe laugh, maybe turn it into something smaller than it was. To them, I was still Clara, the quiet one, the cousin who didn't stay long and rarely spoke up. I didn't want to explain a name they'd never understand. Not because they were cruel, just because they didn't have the tools to carry it with the weight it deserved. That silence became a kind of shield. Out there, I was Valkyrie. In here, I was invisible. Both roles required armor. Both had their purpose. But the whiplash of it never got easier. Being known by strangers and overlooked by blood, it wears on you. Quietly, slowly, like wind smoothing out stone. Dinner was winding down, and the noise had settled into a low hum of half-finished conversations and clinking utensils. I stood to grab something from the kitchen, keys in my hand, when the small metal tag hooked to my keyring slipped loose and landed on the patio with a soft clink. Travis looked down, just curious at first. Then his eyes narrowed. He bent slightly, picked it up, and turned it in his fingers. The tag was simple, matte steel, engraved in black. One word, Valkyrie. He laughed, a short, awkward sound, like he wasn't sure what joke he was walking into. "What's this?" he asked. "You get this at a gift shop?" I didn't answer. Just looked at him. Steady, quiet. Something about my face must have shifted. The smile dropped from his. He blinked and looked at the tag again. Slower this time, reading the word like it suddenly carried weight. "Wait," he said. You're the Valkyrie." The air around the table thinned. Conversation stopped. No one moved. I nodded once. Nothing dramatic, just enough. His voice came again, lower now. "That was you? The one who flew into that mess near Kandahar? You pulled Don's team out?" His tone wasn't teasing anymore. It was quiet. Barely above a whisper. I met his eyes and said, "Yeah, that was me." Travis sat down hard, like his knees forgot how to hold him. His face had gone pale, the kind of pale that makes you look older in seconds. He stared at the tag in his hand like it had started burning. "I didn't know," he mumbled. "We all saw that report. Don said it was a woman, said she flew like she wasn't afraid of death." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The whole table had gone silent. Forks hovered in midair. No more jokes. No more side eyes. Just eyes on me now. Not confused. Not amused. Just stunned. Like someone flipped a switch, and they finally saw me standing there for the first time. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel angry. I felt exposed. Like the one piece of myself I'd kept guarded had been pulled out into the Sunday. No armor, no cover, just Clara, holding a plate of cold potato salad and a key tag that suddenly meant more than it should have. My aunt cleared her throat but didn't say anything. My mom just stared, hand over her mouth. Travis looked like he wanted to apologize, but didn't have the words. And I stood there, still and steady, letting the moment do the talking. Because some truths don't need to be explained. They just need to be seen. That's when I realized something had shifted. It wasn't loud or dramatic. Just a crack in the surface, but wide enough to let the truth in. I'd spent years shrinking in this space. Now, for the first time, they weren't looking past me. They were looking at me. And they saw her, the pilot, the one who didn't flinch, the one who brought them all home, the Valkyrie. Travis didn't say much the rest of that day, No more jokes, no loud opinions. He stayed quiet, watching me differently, like he was still trying to catch up with what he'd just learned. I didn't need an apology right then. The silence was enough. A week later, I found a small, padded envelope in my mailbox. No note, just a challenge coin inside. Polished, heavy, stamped with the seal emblem, and one word: Valor. On the back, he'd etched 3 words by hand. Sorry, I didn't know. I held it for a long moment, not sure what to feel, but something settled in my chest, something steady. After that, things began to shift, slowly. Nobody called me a hero or made a big deal out of anything. But the little things changed. Travis started greeting me first. My aunt stopped asking what I did and started asking how I was holding up. The cousins listened when I spoke, even if I didn't say much. No one ever mentioned the name again. They didn't have to. The way they looked at me said enough. It wasn't awe. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. Like they'd finally put the pieces together and understood the shape they made. I didn't want to be placed on a pedestal. I just wanted to stop being looked through. And that's exactly what happened. They still told the same stories, told the same jokes around the table. But now, when I laughed, they looked at me. When I left early, they asked if I was okay. Respect didn't come crashing in. It arrived quietly, with eye contact and softened voices and a coin that weighed more than it looked. And honestly, that was enough. Looking back, I know now my silence was never weakness. It was a choice. I stayed quiet, not because I had nothing to say, but because I didn't need to prove myself with words. The mission, the hours, the risks I took, they spoke louder than anything I could have said at a dinner table. There were times I wanted to explain, to spell it out so they'd see me clearly. But I learned that real understanding doesn't come from explanations. It comes from presence. From showing up again and again, doing the work, carrying the weight, and never asking for applause. I let them believe what they wanted because I knew who I was. I didn't need their validation to keep going. But when the moment finally came, when the truth slipped into view without warning, I didn't shrink. I stood in it, calm, unapologetic. They saw me finally. Not just Clara, not just the quiet cousin, but the woman behind the uniform, behind the silence. I didn't need a spotlight. I just needed to stop being overlooked. And maybe that's the lesson I never said out loud. You don't earn respect by demanding it. You earn it by living in a way that makes it undeniable, by being solid when no one's watching, by choosing the mission over the moment. Respect isn't given, it's revealed,